Get it? So what happens is tremendous heat is produced. And the heat boils the water and the steam's taken off, which turns the turbine, which generates electricity. So all a nuclear power plant does is boil water. It's like a big electrical hot water jug. It's designed to boil water, period. And there are other ways to boil water than doing this. Nuclear power plants use 1 million gallons a minute of water to keep them cool. And they want to build nuclear power plants in Australia in a drought-riven country. Oh, well, if they build them on the coast, they can use seawater. But guess what? The water levels are rising. Just go to Womble Beach at the moment. It's disappeared. And the water levels are rising. The ice caps are melting much faster than we thought. So as the oceans rise, the nuclear power plants will drown. And their control rooms will become full of water and we'll have a meltdown. I'll describe that in a minute. Or, if you build them on a lake or a river and the water levels fall because of the drought, in France 2 years ago they didn't have enough water to cool the reactors, so they had to squirt the outside of them with garden hoses to keep them cool. Because if they're not kept cool, what happens is, it happened at 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, this gets so hot, this fuel, it melts into a molten lava. And the industry calls it the melt through to China syndrome. And it melts right through the bottom of the reactor, right into the earth. When they had the accident at Chernobyl, which is absolute human folly that caused it, the man running the reactor that night was actually a hydropower expert. He didn't know anything about nuclear. And he was doing an experiment which didn't work. And there was a huge bang, and he had 2 little young men with him, and he said to them, go out and see what's happened. And they went out and they came back and they said, it's gone. And he said, what's gone? They said, the reactor's gone. He said, ridiculous. Go out and check it up again. So they went out and came back and said, it's gone. The thing had exploded. And a huge steel cap on the top of it had lifted off and been thrown aside by this incredible force, because this is the power inside the energy of the sun. And 1/3 of the inventory of the radiation got out and spread all over Europe. And right now, 40% of the European landmass is still radioactive and will be for hundreds of years. Don't buy European food, don't buy French food, don't buy French wine, don't buy any European food. There are over 300 farms in Wales, in England, that grow lambs, and the lambs are so full of radiation they can't sell them on the market. Don't buy Turkish food. And one thing that's happened with globalization is, you know, our orange juice comes from Brazil, for God's sake. How much CO2 does it use, you know, to bring, we're planting our orange orchards. The food in the health food shop comes from Turkey, the dried apricots. I said to the man there, he's a lovely man, I said, are these radioactive? He said, oh, he said, they're organic. I said, yeah, but are they radioactive? Because Turkey got a huge fallout. Do not buy Turkish dried apricots, dried tomatoes, dried figs, or anything from Turkey. I rang the man in Melbourne and I said, who tests the food from Europe, and I said, how do you test it? Oh, he said, the computer picks up, you know, batches to check. And I said, what do you do when you find radioactive food? He said, we dilute it with non-radioactive food. You can't dilute it because it reconcentrates back in the body again. He doesn't understand biology, and I'll explain that to you now. So nuclear power is contraindicated in an age of global warming because a global warming could cause a meltdown in its own right. And a meltdown means that all this stuff gets out. And it happened at 3 Mile Island too. And in my book, this book describes a meltdown. Actually, it describes a meltdown at the 2 reactors, or one of the reactors 25 miles from Manhattan, 35 miles, which were targeted by the terrorists who went into the World Trade Towers. And if a meltdown occurred at one of those reactors, I might read you a little bit, just to let you know why I'm so concerned as a doctor about the situation, and why we need to get to talk to Mr. Howard and explain to him what it could mean to build nuclear power plants up here on the Central Coast. Hang on, I'm just looking up meltdown if I... meltdown. 3 Mile Island, meltdown. Maybe I'm sorry about this. Please be patient. Indian point. What?
How we can afford it.
What?
Sorry. Helen, I said, if you can't find it, how are we can afford it?
Oh, you'll read the book and you'll find it. Okay, so it's very easy to do a meltdown. I was out on Point the other day on the Hudson on Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s boat. And there was supposed to be Coast Guard protecting and stuff, nobody. And if I'd been a mad bomber like Timothy McVeigh, remember who blew up the building in Oklahoma? And I'd packed a speedboat with chemical explosives and driven it into the 2 cooling parts, because there are 2 reactors there, each sucking in 1 million gallons a minute. I would have broken the pipes. The meltdown would have occurred within a couple of hours. And I won't walk you right through the various stages of a meltdown, but what I will say is that about 300,000 people live within 10 miles of the reactor. And you can imagine them all trying to escape. I've got over 300,000 people are running and driving away from the stricken reactor along winding Westchester roads, stuck at traffic lights and in traffic jams, all in a state of panic, anxiety and acute disarray, trying to reach their children in schools, their spouses and their mates. Then they begin to taste a strange metallic flavour in their mouths. They infer that with each breath exposes them to deadly radioactive gases. The radio blasts out dire warnings, yet nobody knows what they're doing and nobody is in control. And what about Manhattan, just a few miles away? Millions of people trapped as the bridges and the Midtown Lincoln and Holland tunnels are totally blocked, hiding in their apartments, hardly daring to breathe. So let me walk you through what